Good morning. Today is Wednesday, June 10th, 2020. I'm Heather Peffley, clerk for the City of Manistee, and I will be assisting the DDA board with this virtual meeting. The Manistee DDA's June 10th, 2020 regular meeting being conducted remotely, where all members of the Manistee DDA are in separate locations and not at the City Hall Council chambers, will be called to order by Chair Kyle Mosier shortly. As always, this meeting audio is being recorded and will be broadcast on Manistee TV YouTube channel. The audio will additionally be added to the ManisteeDowntown.com website. There will be no video associated with this meeting. The microphones of all members of the Manistee DDA will always be live unless there is an audio disruption. I will now begin to unmute and check each microphone that will be live during the meeting. So Kyle, I think you can hear me okay?
Yes.
And I have Tamara.
Yes.
Barry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
James, can you hear me?
Yes.
Jody, good morning.
Yep. Good morning.
Good morning, Karen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ken, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
And Thad, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, I think we've got everybody that is going to be live. We also have Stacy Bitework with us, but I will keep her muted for right now, and we'll continue. And so Kyle, we're ready to proceed with the meeting.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for making it. Hopefully Bruce will join us. And I really am looking forward to seeing you guys again someday. So I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 8:07. And Kelly, go ahead with the roll call.
Okay. Tamara DePonio.
Present.
Barry Lind.
Present.
Kyle Mosier.
Here.
Ed Taylor.
Here.
Jody Walter.
Present.
Karen Goodman.
Here.
James Boudry.
Here.
Ken Urban.
Present.
And Bruce Allen. I think we're still missing. Okay.
All right, again, thank you. And moving on to the agenda, assuming you guys have had a minute to review it, any questions, additions, or motion to approve?
Kyle, this is Thad. I would like to add a discussion on the Chamber's proposal to reinvigorate River Street for business and visitors.
Okay.
Dad, you beat me to it. I was going to ask the same thing.
Okay.
So we do that, how about after item 6?
That makes sense, because we talked about it last month, so it kind of is old business, so we can kind of add an old business between reports and new business. So.
Okay. 6A. Anybody else? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Sounds like Thad is making a motion.
Yes.
Ken Urban
Barry,
will support. Okay, support from Ken Urban. Any discussion? All in favor? I guess we have to do a roll call, don't we?
Yeah,
sorry,
we
guys.
do.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. Tamara DePonio.
Yes.
All right. Karen Goodman.
Yes.
James Boudry.
Yes.
Barry Lind.
Yes.
Ken Urban.
Aye.
Kyle Mosier.
Yes.
Ed Taylor.
Yes.
Jody Welter.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to public comment on agenda items. I think we just have Stacy. Anything from you, Stacy?
Good morning. I just wanted to sit in as we consider a partnership with the Chamber and DDA going forward. Good morning, everyone.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Stacy. And moving on to, I guess, me. Each person waiting in the virtual waiting room will be called individually by the city clerk by the last 4 digits of their phone numbers. Individuals be asked if they have a comment or if they are passing. It is very important that those giving comment have a good phone connection and no sound or noise whatsoever in the background. Otherwise, there will be disruptive audio. If the issue cannot be corrected by the caller, we will move on to the next person in line. I can't seem to get this stuff in the right order. Sorry, guys. I'm going to move on to agenda items. Approval of the minutes from May 13.
This is Barry. I move to approve the minutes from the May 13th meeting as presented.
Okay,
Karen
motion
Goodman
from Barry.
will support that. Karen Goodman
Okay.
will support that.
Thank you both. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, Kelly.
Alrighty. Kenneth Urban.
Aye.
Jody Welter.
Yes.
Thad Taylor.
Yes.
Kyle Mosier.
Yes.
James Boudry.
Yes.
Barry Lind.
Yes.
Tamara DePonio.
Yes.
And Karen Goodman.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Motion carried. Moving on to item 5, unfinished business, discussion of the DDA and Manistee Area Chamber of Commerce potential contract position or partnership. Just an update on that from me. There was a proposal put forward and I reviewed it. I shared that with Ken Urban and Bruce Allen and received feedback from them. Also, I believe Thad reviewed it. Thad Taylor reviewed it. And so I feel like if it's appropriate, I'd like to share that with you guys via email, get some input, and potentially call a special meeting to discuss it. What do you guys think about that process?
Kyle, this is Thad. I would just caution you to be careful if you do share it. Don't ask for feedback that might, you might be dancing a fine line on the Open Meetings Act. But if you just forwarded it to and shared it with all the members in anticipation of having a special meeting discuss it, I think you're on more solid ground.
Okay, thanks, Thad. Most people know I'm not a very good dancer, so that's a good idea.
So is that something we have to look forward to when we get together in a real meeting?
Hopefully before that. I don't know when those real meetings happen. I'm having them, but oh, you mean dancing? Oh gosh, I hope not. So that, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the agreement, but I'll reserve my my opinion beyond that. And in the interest of just trying to get this thing, get this discussion continuing to move, I'll work on a special meeting date and see what we can come up with.
Kyle, I have a question.
Yep.
And it may just be that how you describe things, but you said you shared the agreement with the committee. Has the committee met to discuss it?
We have not met.
Okay. I guess I would just request that the committee meets as a committee to discuss it before we have a special meeting. That doesn't mean we should not schedule a special meeting. It's just between now and then, if the committee could also meet to discuss. That way there's been more vetting and we don't open it up to the whole board to discuss when the committee can maybe get a good solid recommendation. What I'm basically saying is, you know, to avoid me coming in and trying to ask lots of questions, I just feel better if the committee's met and coming forward with a committee proposal that this is good.
That's fine, Barry. You know, based on the feedback I got, I didn't feel it was necessary, but
Okay.
that's fine.
And again, that just how you described it, it just sounded kind of loose there, and since we had appointed a committee for the purpose.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just add, though, if the committee has been kind of doing their meeting through emails or a process other than like a face-to-face, and has developed some sort of idea of what they want, I think that's okay to move it forward if you feel it's ready, if everybody's been able to put their input into it and their ideas and then move it on. It's a little difficult sometimes to get all, you know, everybody together, but if you've been doing that through an email process and everybody feels safe and okay about moving it forward, that's okay too.
I completely agree with Karen. Yep.
Okay. That I do feel like that's where we're at.
Okay, good. That sounds great then.
Okay. Thank you. And Ken, feel free to chime in if you'd like.
Yeah, this is Ken. I shared this with folks in the email chain back and forth. I've got lots of experience with contracts, hundreds of contracts, and in my experience, the ones that are successful have good, clear expectations in them, including expectations about what happens for non-performance. And to me, that was missing in the initial draft we saw, and I raised that concern with Kyle and with Bruce. So that's where I stand. I mean, I support the board's decision to move to contracting this, but I just want to make sure that we have clear expectations laid out in the document, either in the document itself or in an addendum, so we have some leverage if there's non-performance.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, and so I felt like that was something that could be discussed at a board level. There weren't enough items, you know, to go back and forth on after the initial discussion. So I feel like we're at a good point where we can bring it to the board.
So I guess, again, I'm trying to understand. So what you're proposing to send around, has that had changes and back and forth with the chamber and evolved based on committee input, or is it still the initial draft that was originally received?
It's the initial draft with proposed changes based on the input that I've received.
Okay. And those proposed changes have gone through the chamber and are acceptable to them, and
I have had discussions about those changes with the chamber.
Okay. Again, I'm just trying to understand, and this is really a hard discussion over the phone.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I got it. I understand. I'm caught up.
Thanks, Barry. Any other discussion on this? Okay, I'm going to move on to item 6. Do we have any committee reports? And I guess I'll start with Barry.
The design committee has not been meeting. Since we're a lot of volunteers, it just hasn't made sense, in my opinion, to do it via a Zoom call, even though it's getting to the point where things are not getting done because the committee is not meeting, and I'm personally getting concerned on that. But hopefully within the next couple of weeks, with the state or our region moving to level 5 of the governor's plan, that we can start doing some more things in person. But having said that, the one thing I do want to point out, because you may be getting questions or you may have questions yourselves, is as it relates to the downtown river and other street flower baskets and banners. You'll notice the flower baskets went up, but the banners have not yet. And there's a lot going on there, and I need to follow up with an organization, but the Grad Bash committee approached me, and I think also Jeff McCula, and asked if they could put up banners for graduating seniors this year. And after some internal discussion, my response to them was, yes, that seems appropriate, with some conditions, basically the conditions being that they would stay up until probably mid-July, and then we would put up our regular banners from that point through November, so that it seemed to some in the conversations that if the banners were up through November, that would kind of not, it would lose some of the significance as you got farther on into the fall as to what the purpose was. And then Grad Bash said that they were going to go and think about it, and then I've not heard anything from them. So at this point, I'm kind of assuming that they decided not to do that and didn't gather back to tell me they're not going to do it. In which case, I've got to get going and get the banners up. So that's why downtown looks the way it does, flowers, but no banners right now, because we're trying to figure out what banners will go up. That's really all I have. The other things kind of fit under the topic of Reinvigorate. Downtown Manistee is on the agenda later.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Any other committee reports?
This is Tamara. The Business Development Committee was supposed to meet on June 3rd, but we just decided to reconvene once, I guess, we figure out what direction we're going, and when we have more information, I don't know, to put together for the group, so.
Okay. Thanks, Tamara. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to the next added item, chamber discussion to reinvigorate downtown Manistee. You want to go with that, Thad or Barry?
Yeah, this is Thad. I can go with it. I've had a couple of conversations with Mark Miller from the chamber about this proposal and how we could implement it. And what he's telling me, there's not a consensus of downtown merchants to block off streets, but there is some consensus to allow dining in parking spaces. And so we talked about how to do that. I have obviously some safety concerns because, diners and vehicles don't mix well. So, but I think there's a way we can do it. The biggest issue was the platforms. And what he's hearing is that the individual restaurant owners don't have or don't want to spend the money for platforms, and apparently the design committee or someone from our design committee offered to have the DDA buy them and construct them, and I'm a little concerned about that. So that's where I'm at with it.
well, someone from the DDA Design Committee, that would be me. So per the last meeting, I was assigned to work with Mark on fleshing out the Reinvigorate proposal. So he and I have met a few times, and the concept of the platforms, both he and I have met twice with the weekly merchants meeting. I was on the weekly merchants meeting call yesterday, but he was not. And basically through that process of working with the downtown merchants, that was the one, well, there were two kind of, I don't say universally, but, you know, most people on that call, the merchants call, indicated that would be the most helpful to help reinvigorate downtown and, you know, help businesses out. And that was a more formalized customer pickup process. And again, utilizing parking spaces as a pickup zone for businesses that are doing curbside pickup, which as we kind of continue the opening up process probably is getting lower and lower priority. But the other being these platforms that take up parking spots that would basically allow restaurants, probably primarily, but you know, theoretically any retail location that wanted to expand their ability to provide service in the square footage while they're being required to limit number of people inside at this point. So there's a proposal that was put together. It was submitted to City Council at their meeting a week ago. Council approved the concept in a rather close 4-3 votes. Since that time, Mark and I have met with Jeff McCullough to talk through some of the safety issues and concerns that Thad has mentioned. And I know that Mark was scheduled to talk to Thad after we had talked to Jeff, and so you know, he's given his inputs already on that. But the one, as it relates to these platforms, which is, I would say, the top item in this plan, the whole purpose of the plan is to help financially struggling businesses. And to come up with a plan that says, oh, and now you need to spend money to be allowed for us to help you, doesn't kind of seem in the spirit of the plan. So I had reached out to Kyle, I don't know, a week, 10 days ago, and just said, and asked his opinion, do you think it makes sense for the DDA to contemplate something like this funding potentially these platforms to help our businesses? Kyle wasn't opposed. So I said I would request that on this meeting, we have this on the agenda to discuss whether or not the DDA would consider funding the construction of said platform. If the DDA doesn't, I doubt any businesses would do it on their own, in which case the whole Reinvigorate, in which case the whole Reinvigorate probably doesn't amount to anything to help our downtown. So that's kind of the nutshell as to where things are. And you know, I open it up for discussion as to what the board's thoughts are.
Barry, this is Jody Walter. I have a question about the platform. So are they going in the parking spots in front of the restaurants, or going from the restaurant into the parking spot? And so how do people cross the, okay, go ahead.
So let me describe the platform. So the way the downtown parking is striped, there are two consecutive parking spaces that are together, and then there's kind of this X buffer that kind of aids parallel parking by kind of spreading things out. So the proposal as currently written would be that two consecutive spaces that are kind of grouped together, a business that is adjoining to them could request through essentially a short application process to request those be used for platform for extra outdoor space. Kind of limitations or construction or rules around that would be, first step is any business that is asking for this needs to get the written support of their neighboring businesses on either side, so that it's not one business stealing parking spaces from another business that thinks, you know, they're more important. Really trying to get the merchants and businesses downtown to collaborate and try to avoid any issues or squabbling by getting them to agree on what's best for them. Two, in general, you would have parking, you wouldn't have these consecutively, so you would have two sets of spaces in a row blocked out, but you'd have, you know, maybe two spaces blocked out, then you'd have two or more parking spaces, and then you might have another one. There is language in there that says if more than two consecutive wanted to be blocked out, then every business on that block would need to agree to that. Again, trying to make sure that we're not doing something that helps certain businesses at the expense of others, but that everyone agrees that what is being asked makes sense for them collectively. The platforms themselves would essentially be at sidewalk level, so kind of extending the sidewalk out into the two parking spaces. They would have railings on them, so that there would be a physical barrier between people on the platform and traffic that is still going down River Street. Those those railings would be appropriately striped with reflective tape, et cetera, so that they're visible even at night for drivers driving downtown, so that they're not run into by vehicles. There's probably more details that I can't think of right now, but that's kind of the gist of it. One other thing I will add, though, is current city policy states that when the sidewalk is being used by businesses, and again, maybe this is a fundamental thing that I should mention that maybe not everyone is aware of, is the sidewalks are not the property of the buildings in our downtown districts. The sidewalks are city property. So no business downtown can use the sidewalk for more permanent or other uses without the city's approval. So as a result of that, the DDA administers an application process for outdoor seating for restaurants. That is something that a restaurant every spring needs to apply. There's an application fee for that. But as part of the restrictions that get put on the use of the sidewalk by businesses, because again, it's not their property, it is the city's, it's a community asset, is that there at a minimum needs to be a 5-foot clear path for pedestrians to utilize to maneuver through the sidewalk. That's always been there, primarily for ADA reasons, but I think in light of social distancing and just individual people's comfort level, that really becomes important, I think, this summer, so that everyone downtown feels comfortable that they're not being crowded together if personally they're not comfortable with that. So if you think about, our sidewalks aren't that wide. You take out 5 feet, that doesn't leave you a lot of space. So adding these platforms kind of doesn't double the space, but you know, it comes close to giving a lot more space, so you can maintain social distancing and a comfort level for pedestrians that are utilizing the sidewalk to move up and down River Street, but you're also enabling businesses, especially restaurants who may be limited to 50% capacity for a while, and others who may have limits, to still generate enough revenue to sustain them in the period of the year where they need to be making their money, because we all know how highly seasonal this community is. So I'll stop talking now. Jody, did that answer your question?
It did, and I guess the reason why I ask it is because I've reopened 2 restaurants at the casino, as everyone probably knows. And what I've learned in the past week is that we have a tendency as restaurateurs to adapt and overcome. And I can't help but wonder if many of these restaurants downtown are already experiencing the same thing we're experiencing, which is to say, we come up with innovative ways every single day, every single day to adapt and overcome. And just as a patron, I guess my concern would be the smell of exhaust as I'm sitting out front eating. And I guess I'm wondering what the level of support is by the actual restaurant owners for this.
Kyle, can I interrupt for one moment? This is Heather. We had somebody call in, and I just need to make sure that it is not Mr. Allen, because I don't want him to be muted. Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Good morning. Is this Mr. Allen? Is Mr. Allen with us?
Yes, it is.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, it is.
I've got you unmuted now. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jody.
Jody, I don't know the answer to all of those things, but I'll provide a little bit more context. The first is after our conversation, and by our, I mean myself and Mark Miller, one of his action items was to basically go visit with restaurants and kind of obvious candidates that might want something like this, to gain an understanding as to how much demand there might be. I have not heard back from Mark on what he found out in that process. 2 is, while the current situation is bringing this process to the forefront in a quick manner, this whole concept is something that the design committee had discussed a number of years ago. Many communities do similar things like this. Ludington, I know restaurants in Ludington have done this in the past. I don't know if they currently do or not, but I've driven by on James Street, and there have been platforms out in the parking area for some of the restaurants down in Ludington. So in some ways, some of the need is being driven by immediate issues that we're dealing with, but also there has been many discussions in the past about how this was a desirable thing for our downtown, to add more outdoor seating, to add a character to our district that is a little bit, I don't know, I won't say friendlier, and that may not be the right term. It's just nice in downtowns where you see a lot of outdoor activity. It just seems to be vigorous and engaging when you have that. With our narrow sidewalks and lack of other amenities like trees and vegetation and outdoor seating areas and all the things that other downtown districts have, we can have kind of a sterile atmosphere, and so that's part of the history of this as well. But I also understand how restaurants adapt, and they'll do the best they can with what resources they have.
Okay, thank you, Barry. I just needed some clarity on all that. Thank you.
Kyle,
this is James. I think I want to jump in on that really quick. I think I want to mirror what Barry just said, and I would agree wholeheartedly on that. I don't need one of these decks at my business, but I think both visitors and residents alike would agree with the fact that at some point something like this for extended outdoor seating would be wonderful. My only questions on this are, do we have to bid these out? And if not, do we know the costs? Is the city going to build them? Where are they going to go in the off season? I know these are a lot of random questions, but I think that those need to be answered. And if those have to be answered, like if we have to go out and get bids and then wait for them to be built, and without a real strong target date, we're probably looking at 2021, right? I mean, let's be realistic.
I mean, those are all valid concerns.
If don't have businesses that are like 100% on board right now, which I don't know, I think they should be, but if there's going to be continued talk, if we have to get bids, if we have to have another meeting, if we have to go to council again to talk about bids, then we're looking at August, then we're looking at the end of the year.
Kyle, this is Thad. Can I comment?
Go ahead, Thad.
Yeah, I share the same concerns that James does. You know, I'm fully supportive of bringing the dining out into the parking areas. My concern is knowing the speed at which government operates and the lack of having an executive director right now compounds it. You know, I'm with James. By the time we got this going, we would put them down just in time to take them off so we could plow snow. So one of the options I talked with Mark about was having the business owners build an ADA compliant ramp from the sidewalk down into the parking spaces. There is a code for that, and let them just use the parking spots, because that could be expedited, and we could get that done and allow them to start operating in those parking spots. To me, it's just more of a timing issue, and if we consider ramps, then we would have time to flesh out this platform issue in time for next year.
This is Karen. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me. Here's my concern. You know, again, we're talking very small areas, not really a lot of space for you know, when we start talking about putting ramps and all that stuff, it's like there's absolutely going to be no way that people will be able to do the ADA compliant ramping and then still have space for seating. I think there's seating allowed up on the sidewalk. So I would say, you know, make a spot or two allowable for handicap accessible seating on the sidewalk, maybe by the buildings, and then have the seating at the other area if, you know, you can't get the ramp in there. I'm a little concerned that you're going to take up too much space for that. Again, I keep bringing up, I mean, I've been at on James Street as well, and it's Blue something, I can't remember, but you know, that restaurant has a decking that it puts down, you know, and that works out pretty well, but I don't recall that it had any ramping on it unless it was on the sides in the parking area. So you know, I want to be careful about that, because again, we'll be slowing things down, because now you've got to do an ADA specific bid, which I do lots of these, and they are a nightmare. And then to get a builder to build those is really difficult as well. So we want to look at how nimble we can be, how quick and reactive we can be, and how safe we can be all at the same time.
Thanks,
this
Karen.
This is Jody. I haven't.
Go ahead,
sorry,
Jody.
Kyle, go ahead.
No,
well,
go ahead, Jody.
Say, would the city be willing to waive the fee for restaurants only for seating out there for the summer?
This is Kyle. The fee is actually, the DDA administers that, and it's a one-time $25 fee. And if you renew the following year and you get the application in on time, there's no cost to it.
Okay.
And all the restaurants that have outdoor seating downtown, Fillmore, Talk About It, I think Outpost has one, Goodies, yes. TJ's, they've already gone through that process, because that's something that's been there for a number of years. So the limited seating that's already there is what's been in place now a number of years, and so there is no additional fee in to get some outdoor seating at this point.
Okay.
This is Kyle. I think everybody brings up great points for this discussion. I guess just to chime in, the way that I see this, from Mark Miller's and the Chamber's proposal, as well as Council's approval, is that this is a tool in a toolbox that allows businesses to do more. But I really think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. So yes, I do agree that if we administer this and pay for the platforms or whatever they may be, we're government, it's going to take a while. But right now, if the business wants to move forward with something, if we could maybe just clearly define, what was approved and, what is the safe way to go about this, and at a minimum, leave it in their hands to implement it if they want to. And we can still follow up with some support as it becomes available. But if we could just outline what Council approved, if we wanted to include ADA, ramp guidelines and barricade guidelines, anything like that, I think that would be good information. I think that there's going to be just a handful of businesses that take advantage of this, which I think is positive. But it gives them a tool in their toolbox to use if they desire.
And Kyle, I guess I'll go kind of tangent, or not tangent, but along that direction of thought is the city has a current general policy, I think it's general policy 46 or 47, that talks about the use of sidewalks. It lays out kind of the outdoor seating permits that has been existent. And in that policy, there is language in there that allows these types of platforms. So any business can, under existing in place city policy, ask to have one of these. And that language has been there for a number of years. It really gets into, since no one's ever done it, what are the design and construction requirements for something. And I think in light of the current situation where the idea behind the Chamber and DDA's Reinvigorate proposal is to help financially struggling businesses who've been shut down for months, some financial contribution by the DDA, I think, helps in the spirit of that. So, potentially the program could just be businesses who want it, work with the city under the current general policy 47, and then maybe come to the DDA for potentially a reimbursement of costs on that, as opposed to creating more of a structured program. So kind of a one-off basis. Yeah. I just believe that financially supporting our downtown merchants at this time is appropriate for the DDA.
I fully support supporting it financially, but in the interest of time, I think if we could just gather the information for them in the meantime while we're sorting this thing out. I didn't realize that it was already allowable. I guess it makes me question how that was different from what Council actually voted on, but we don't need to get into that. If we could gather the information and make it available and continue to move forward on funding and support, I think that would be a great way forward.
This is Ken. I think it might be worthwhile for us as a DDA to look at, if Barry knows about this, but some of the rest of us don't, then what's the likelihood that our downtown merchants know that? It might be one item that we put on our list to have the contractor execute is a document that says these are the options for you as a downtown business under current city policies and ordinances, and make it easy for businesses to deploy those kinds of resources rather than Just hoping that somebody stumbles across it, has a few extra minutes and is reading through the city policies because they don't have anything else to do.
Yeah, that's unlikely.
And this is James. I just up in one more time and just kind of near what Jody was saying, in that there's a lot of adaptation, and these restaurateurs, they're overcoming as they go, and they might not be ready to pull the trigger on something like this right now. But if we could maybe just ensure that this is something that we can help them with going into next season when things look a little bit different. I'd just like to make sure that if they pass this year because of all this craziness and everything that's going on with their business, that next year the opportunity to maybe have some of these advantages is afforded to them as well. And what I mean by that is if they pay for it, if there's a reimbursement, or the DDA is going to help them with that. So I just want that.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Ken. So how do we want to conclude this? Barry?
We've talked about a lot of things, and I really am not sure where the board's consensus is evolving on this, but I'm trying to think of a motion that would accomplish something, and I'm not sure it's coming to my mind right now.
Okay.
Well, I think this is bad. To follow up on what Ken said is that, maybe one step is somehow we push out the city's policy on outdoor seating along with the outdoor seating permit through the DDA, at least raise the awareness level for the merchants on what is allowed and what are the parameters, and see if anybody wants to follow through on it and take advantage of it.
So I guess my question there is, so, and again, Mark Miller was in the process of doing kind of that, more so in the guise of his proposal as opposed to existing city policy framework. Again, I have not gotten feedback from him how receptive any specific businesses have been to the idea, so I don't know. But, he's been the one that's doing that. This topic has been discussed at 3 weekly merchant committee meetings, so those that attend the merchant committee are very well aware of these types of things. So, there is some awareness. It's not universal and probably never could be, but I think those two things are gathering some of that information. So assuming as Mark is doing this, he is finding some businesses that would want to proceed, what can he tell them as to what process they should follow, and will there or might there be any help in them to fund such an activity?
Barry, would you be willing to contact Mark Miller and see if he's willing to at least, put all this information together, what the current ordinances and what council passed, so businesses at least have accurate information on how to move forward if they want to?
Sure. I mean, I believe that really is mostly put together already, but this discussion takes it a little bit different direction. So yes, I can work with Mark on that.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said that had not been done yet.
Well, I mean, the Reinvigorate downtown Manistee proposal talks about all of these things, but it was more focused on, kind of what I led off discussing, as opposed to, okay, you're on your own, there's existing policy, figure out what you want to do. So that component wasn't conveyed, probably in that, because that wasn't the goal at that time.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that's the message that we give to merchants, that they're on their own, but at least we have something to give them in the meantime.
That probably came across a little poorer than it was intended. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Came across that way.
No, it's okay. I think, to the point, we are government, things take a while. So let's just keep the process moving, get the information out there. I would support financially, from the DDA helping this, but I don't know what that process looks like yet. And I don't know if any of us do. So in the meantime, I think if we could just get the information into the folks' hands, see, and then we can also gauge interest level.
Hey, Barry, this is Jody Walter. I have a question. Do you think that the CVB would be willing to help with some fencing for those parking spots? Don't we have that metal fencing that is being stored by the city?
I would say yes. I think that probably would go along more with kind of what Thad was proposing of just building ramps. So basically you're at street level, you've got fencing around, and then you've got a ramp going, up and down that's ADA compliant, as opposed to utilizing that fencing with a wooden platform, just because of how the bases of that, you might end up sticking out in the traffic too far to try to combine those.
That's what I'm getting at, because with Karen, what she was suggesting was the ADA seating being on the sidewalk, and with any clarity from the city and from the DDA about what is allowed on the sidewalks and what these businesses can do based on the fees they've already paid. If the CVB would be willing to allow some of these businesses who want to use some of this fencing, then we would avoid the platform and then address the issue that Karen brought up about the platform taking up seating space in the parking spot.
Those are certainly options. In thinking of the language of the current city policy, we might have to finagle them into that language, but certainly options to consider.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm not hearing any motions out there. I would entertain one if anybody has one. Otherwise, I think we can move on.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion, and this just because, again, I'm concerned that there's no commitment or indication of financial commitment from this organization, which I'm concerned will just lead no one to pursue it. So I'm going to make a motion. So my motion is that the DDA reallocate 5,000 of the 10,000 budgeted this year for the facade grant program. So half of that money for the purposes of reimbursing businesses who decide to move forward with outdoor platforms this year.
Okay. We
so
have
it's not a budget change, it's just a reallocation. And it just gives some money there that it can at least be attempted this year for anyone who wants to pursue it.
Have a motion?
This is James. I'd support that.
Okay, the motion and support from James. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, Kelly?
Okay. Tamara DePonio.
Yes.
Karen Goodman.
Yes.
Kyle Mosier.
Yes.
James Boudry.
Yes.
Barry Lind.
Yes.
Thad Taylor.
Yes.
Cass Urban.
Yes.
Bruce Allen.
Yes.
Jody Walter.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to new business, item 7, consideration of approval for budget amendment for 248-902 legal fees from $2,500 to $4,500 for the fiscal year 2019-2020. Fiscal year 2019-2020, 248-902 legal fees were budgeted for $1,000 and amended to $2,500 at the February regular DDA board meeting. The chart of accounts report from April 30th, 2020 indicate the total balance during this fiscal year used is $3,617. Additional funds will be required for upcoming projects, including staff contracting, West Shore Community College contracts for the Riverwalk Plaza and facade/parking, and Manistee Magic upcoming projects. The above request is for the budget amendment to support additional legal time for the remainder of the 2019-2020 fiscal year. At this time, the board could take action to approve the budget amendment for legal fees. Board members,
Thad.
please state your name. Thanks, Thad. Go ahead.
This is Thad. I'll make that motion.
This is Barry. I support.
Okay. Motion and support as it's written in the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, Kelly, please.
All right. James Boudry,
Yes.
Kenneth Urban,
Yes.
Karen Goodman, Tamara
Yes.
DePonio,
Yes.
Barry Lind,
Yes.
Bruce Allen,
Yes.
Kyle Mosier,
Yes.
Thad Taylor,
Yes.
Jody Walter.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the next item under 7, consideration of approval for the budget amendment for 248-858 miscellaneous office-related expense from $500 to $600 for the fiscal year 2019-2020. For fiscal year 2019-2020, 248-858 miscellaneous office-related expense was budgeted for $300 and amended to $500 at the February regular board meeting. The chart of accounts report from April 30th, 2020 indicate the total balance during this year used is $578. Reoccurring expenses originally recorded under this account are no longer executed. The budget request will address the initial additional costs associated with the monthly disbursements. The above request is for the budget amendment to support additional funds for the remainder of the 2019-2020 fiscal year. At this time, the board could take action to approve the budget amendment for miscellaneous office-related costs.
This is Ken Urban. I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Ken.
This is
James.
Thad. I'll motion.
I think I heard Thad for a second. Any
Correct.
further discussion? Okay. Hearing no discussion, go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. Jody Walter,
Yes.
Bruce Allen,
Yes.
Kenneth Urban,
Yes.
Thad Taylor,
Yes.
Barry Lind,
Yes.
James Boudry,
Yes.
Kyle Mosier,
Yes.
Karen Goodman,
Yes.
Tamara DePonio.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to public comment. Any comment from the public? Okay. Moving on to item 9, comments by board members. Could you call the board members, Kelly?
Sure. Tamara DePonio.
Yes.
Any comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Karen Goodman,
Pardon? Yes.
Any comments?
I just, well, no, I don't. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, no, I take that back. I just wanted to ask, has anybody else been at the, on the Riverwalk by any chance? I've had like 3 complaints about the appearance of the Riverwalk, and I haven't had an opportunity to get down there and check it myself. That's why I wasn't going to say anything, but if anybody else has gone down there and looked at it, I'm a little concerned that our weeding and cleaning isn't being done.
This is Kyle. I have been on portions of the Riverwalk. I would echo some of those concerns. I have seen some improvements very recently, but I would also say that those concerns are for the DDA district as a whole. I do know that a council member did a walkthrough with a member of the design committee recently with, for some of those concerns.
Great, thank you, Kyle.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. Kyle, you have anything?
I just, well, I want to thank Heather helping us out this, and again, you, Kelly, thank you. Thanks for helping us out this morning. And I will send out the proposal for the chamber agreement shortly, and would really like to schedule a special meeting to discuss that. So that's all.
Okay. James?
No comments.
Barry?
I have 2. One actually follows up on what Karen was talking about with Riverwalk. I've noticed that the construction fencing around the Glicks construction project has blocked off the Riverwalk entrance on Maple Street. And part of me recalls a conversation I had with Jeff McCullough in the past that was not supposed to happen, that the agreement was that they would maintain the handicap parking spot and the entrance to the Riverwalk. I'm just concerned that there is no Riverwalk entrance in the heart of downtown right now, because that's a significant entry point. And given the current health situation, outdoor activity is what is encouraged. And right now we're really limited in even being able to get to one of our key outdoor locations. And I was just curious if anyone knew whether or not my recollection is correct, or if I dreamed that up in a dream I had talking with Jeff McCullough.
Barry, this is Kyle. I don't recall that discussion if it took place in a design committee meeting.
Okay.
But I would certainly.
Does anyone think that if the project could possibly accommodate at least occasional access using that entry point, as opposed to it being blocked off the entire season? I understand there will be times
I'm here looking at it right now, and maybe I could just go across the street and ask them guys to move it.
Thad, do you have any input on this? Since I'm sure you were probably involved in what the requirements were for the project.
I have no direct knowledge. That was left to others on our staff to coordinate with the construction company.
Okay. So anyway, that was one question I had. And then the other is, I've forgotten what it is. So I guess you can skip me.
Okay. Anything, Thad?
No.
Okay. Any comments, Ken Urban?
I just suggest that if we find out that we can't reopen that entrance on Maple Street, maybe some temporary signage there that redirects visitors to other entrances to the Riverwalk. There's one, a block in either direction, and if we had a sign there, that could redirect people on how to access the Riverwalk. You know, the one to the east there is even a little bit better because it's, in my recollection, it's just a ramp down to the Riverwalk level. So if we had signage, that would at least redirect people to entrances who might not otherwise know there are other entrances. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Bruce Allen?
Only that at some point I'd like to discuss parking signage downtown. I remember discussion last year about signage going up, and I want to check in the status of that. That's all.
Actually,
Okay.
Bruce, if you could reach out to me, that's a design committee project, and I can fill you in, and there's some stuff going on behind the scenes on that might answer your question. So reach out to me.
Very good. I will. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then Jody Walter.
No comment.
Okay.
Kelly, this is Kyle. If I could just add one thing, going to Ken's comment in regards to the signage. If it's okay, I will call Jeff McCullough and ask him about that, because I have another concern very similar at the by the Cedar Street Marina further west. It's out of our district, but I don't believe there's any signage there where erosion damage occurred and the Riverwalk is blocked off. So I think signage there would be helpful as well. So I'll call Jeff McCullough.
Okay.
That's all from me. And I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Thad. I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Thad. Do we have a second?
This is James. Second.
Thanks, James. You guys have a great rest of the week.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.